Hi honey bunnies, I hope you're enjoying Self-Love September so far. I really am. Self-Love Stories has been an amazing experience, particularly. It's been not only really enjoyable to put my ideas out into the world about self-love like I do every year, but having that added element of self-love stories where people are actually emailing me their personal stories, their blog posts, their videos. It's just been completely astounding. The first time that I logged in to the email address that I've given for people to send their stories to, I was overwhelmed. I was completely bowled over. I spent several hours in there just clicking on links, reading through blog posts, watching videos, and I found myself in tears a good few times. It was really a sumptuous experience. It was very raw, and I definitely felt like I'd taken a couple of layers of skin off, you know what I mean? I did feel really vulnerable and really raw watching and listening and reading some of the stories, but it was so worth it. And I really think the master blog post is shaping up to be a super helpful resource for people that want to listen to other people's experiences of being without self-love, learning to move towards self-love, talking about their personal challenges, some of which I find very relatable and others of which I've never had to experience. And I think that's the really valuable and beautiful thing about the Self-Love Stories hashtag, is that we can all come together to exchange stories and hold space for each other regarding things that we may not personally have experienced. And I think that can be such an incredible learning tool. Please, if you have made a video, if you've written a blog post, if you have done anything that's geared towards the self-love stories idea and you haven't emailed sls16@mail.com to let me know about it, please do, because during the month of September I run a private group where I'm talking with clients privately about self-love as well, on top of continuing with my readings and sessions. I'm a full-time counsellor, so even though I may see things on my news feed, on my subscription feed from time to time and think, oh, that's a self-love stories thing, there's going to be lots of stuff that I miss. So please, I may have missed it. If you want it to be in the master blog post, please send it to sls16@mail.com. And if you would like to see the master blog post so far, it has a lot of links on it already. You can click below. I've left the link for you in the down bar so you can enjoy going through and watching other people's videos, reading other people's blog posts. There's some Instagram posts on there, there's some tweets on there, so yeah, get looking at all the amazing self-love stories that are on offer. Forgiving yourself is a big part of the self-love journey. If there's anything that you are hanging on to, that you are giving yourself a hard time over, that you bully yourself about, that you dredge up over and over again in your mind as a way to berate yourself or put yourself down, then you definitely need a dose of self-forgiveness. And for a lot of people out there, forgiving themselves can actually be more difficult and stickier than forgiving others, believe it or not. For some people, self-forgiveness is the thing that really sticks in their throats, and maybe you're one of those people. And if you are, then this video is intended to help you to understand how vital it is that you go through your process of self-forgiveness, how worthwhile it is, and how much it actually will help other people in your life, and it will help you to be in service to others who need it. It will strengthen you, not only for yourself, but for other people. It will make you a better and more well-rounded and integrated human being. We've all done stuff that we are not fucking proud of, okay? We've all behaved in ways that were less than stellar. We've all looked back over certain things in our lives, conversations that we've had, scenarios that have come up, decisions that we've made, and we've just thought, what the fuck was I playing at? Like, you know, we've had fist-eating moments. Ugh. It's one of those things. We're human beings. We absolutely all have those times. If you have ever had to take yourself through a process of forgiveness so far in your life journey, or if there is something that you're struggling to forgive yourself for now, then honey, congratulations. You are a normal, functioning human being. You are not a sociopath. You are, you know, you're within the realms of what is psychologically normal, okay? It's absolutely par for the course that there are going to be things that we wish we hadn't done, things that we wish we hadn't said, things we wish we'd done differently, decisions we wish we'd never made. Sometimes the decisions that we make in life will really hurt other people, and it's only further down the line that we recognise how much our decisions hurt those people. Maybe at the time we didn't feel like we required forgiveness from anybody or from ourselves, but as we move along in life and we learn lessons and we come to know ourselves and we come to know life more deeply, we can look back over the timeline of our life journey and think, shit, you know, I see how I could have handled that better. You may have betrayed somebody, you may have bullied somebody, you may have lied to somebody about something. Maybe you struggle to forgive yourself for the way that you've treated yourself. I know that can be a big one for a lot of people. We just keep playing that tape back over and over again in our heads of just how abominably poorly we've treated ourselves and how it held us back for so long, and it can be difficult to forgive ourselves for that. I know that a really common problem for a lot of people is that they have hurt somebody, they feel bad about the way they've hurt somebody in some way, and they can't forgive themselves for it because that person won't forgive them for it. And it almost feels like a two-step process. It feels like they cannot forgive themselves and move on unless they have first sought and received the forgiveness of the other person. Lots of people tell themselves that they don't deserve to be able to forgive themselves, that they should be, up nights in a cold sweat thinking about what they've done, that they should be miserable as a result of the decisions that they've made. I know that one of my ex-partners struggled to forgive himself for a very, very long time. I spoke to him 2.5 years after the ending of our relationship, and he told me that he still could not forgive himself for the decisions that he made while we were together, and that he still carried guilt. And he felt, when I told him that he ought to forgive himself, he ought to let it go and move on, he said, no, I deserve to feel guilty. I deserve to carry this burden. I deserve to have this wound. And that isn't true. You know what? When you don't forgive yourself, when you keep carrying it year after year after year, the guilt, the burden, the stress of it, when you keep telling yourself that you're less than because you've happened to have made some crappy decisions in your life, that's not ultimately helping anyone. It's not helping you. It's not helping other people. It's not serving the planet. It's for nobody's greater good. It just adds to the misery and the sadness. It adds to the crap that you already feel that you've created by making those bad decisions. You're prolonging that crap. You're prolonging that negative vibration, that bad, dense vibration. You're keeping hold of it. When you decide consciously that you're going to attempt a process of forgiveness, you are basically saying onwards and upwards. If I can do better, let me show myself that. Let me get right with myself and be an ally to myself again, so I can make decent decisions, so I can make good of what was difficult back then, what was bad back then, what I regret back then. Let me show myself that I have more, that I can do things differently. You have to start that from a place of being an ally to yourself. And if you're torturing yourself day after day over something that you did in the past, then you're not an ally to yourself. So how are you going to put your best foot forward, if you're not even on your own team? Self-forgiveness almost then becomes like a practical step. It becomes a pragmatic choice that you make so that you can get on with the business of making good, of doing things in a way that's better, in a way that feels more positive, in a way that's truly aligned with what you honestly believe. What I'm trying to say is that nothing ultimately positive emerges as the result of staying stranded in feelings of guilt and self-loathing. Nothing positive comes from that. Nothing is created as a result of that. People who hang on to feelings of guilt and won't forgive themselves are very, very rarely able to help themselves or to help others. They are stuck in a low vibration, which means that it's really difficult for them to show up and put their best foot forward in the world. If you want to make better decisions in the future, if you want to be a better version of yourself in the now, if you want to make amends for whatever you did back then, for whatever reasons you did it, the first step is self-forgiveness. You've got to let that shit go, babe. You've got to let it go so that you can get back on track, so that you can focus, so that you can be with yourself as you make better decisions and do better things with the time that you've got left on this planet. My biggest piece of advice for anyone that's struggling with the process of self-forgiveness or still really beating themselves up about something is to make the conscious decision that self-forgiveness is going to form part of a larger narrative of getting clear on your ethics, getting clear on how you want to move forward in the world, getting clear on what kind of person you want to be. If you decide that you're going to forgive yourself for something that you did in the past, something that you said in the past, or even the kind of person that you generally were in the past, but then you do not connect that decision to forgive yourself with the bigger decision to change as a result of what you did in the past, to learn from what you did in the past and move on from it, then it's incomplete. You've only done one half of it. in order for self-forgiveness to be that practical, pragmatic, life-giving step in your self-love journey, it needs to be a two-part process. You cannot do one half of the process without the other. So the first part of the process is to make the decision that you are going to forgive yourself, that you are going to let it go, that you are not going to carry it around on your back anymore, you know, like a huge, insurmountable burden. You make the decision that you're going to let yourself live your life, you're going to free yourself from the chains of whatever you did in the past, whatever you said in the past, or even if you were just generally the kind of person in the past that you're not proud of. You make the decision that you're going to let that shit go. Then you tie that initial decision that you're going to forgive yourself to the bigger process, the bigger step, which is allowing your self-forgiveness to form part of a bigger narrative. A narrative of personal evolution, a narrative of learning the lessons that came from that crappy shit that you did before, a narrative of moving on from it, expanding your consciousness as a result of it, being kinder, being more compassionate, being more aware. When I was working on the notes for Self-Love September, this is what I wrote for Forgive Yourself, and I think this is really important to read aloud to you guys. It says, decide that forgiving yourself is going to form part of a larger narrative of clarifying your ethics and living in accordance with them. Decide that self-forgiveness is going to be a symbol of what's to come. Decide that self-forgiveness is going to be a symbol of what's to come. That's where it is. That's where it gets super serious. That's where it can be allowed to become profound. It can be allowed to do something. It's not just an empty gesture. Self-forgiveness is not something that you do to convince yourself that nothing you did in the past really was bad or really meant anything negative. Self-forgiveness is not something that you do so that you can convince yourself you didn't do anything wrong. Self-forgiveness is what you do so that you can acknowledge that you made mistakes and you're now ready to work on the knowledge that you've acquired from making those mistakes. You're ready to be a person who lives in alignment with their values, in alignment with their core principles, a person who's kind, a person who uses self-awareness to make decisions that favour them and that favour others. We have got to stop seeing self-forgiveness as an inherently selfish act. We've got to stop seeing self-forgiveness as something that only arseholes and sociopaths do. We've got to stop seeing self-forgiveness as something that you would only do if you were so selfish and so self-absorbed that you didn't want to think about what you've done in the past anymore. That's not what self-forgiveness is. Self-forgiveness is an act that involves everybody. Everybody that you'll ever meet, everybody you'll ever come across is going to be helped and nurtured and satisfied by your self-forgiveness. Because if you don't forgive yourself, darling, you're just tripping over that same stone of guilt over and over again. As a result, you never really outlive or outrun the crappy behaviour that you exhibited in the past. You're always thinking about it. You're always restricting and limiting yourself as a result of it. You're always associating yourself with it. So forgiving yourself isn't about cutting off from whatever you did and telling yourself, I never did that. I never did that. That was never me. La 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 la. I don't remember that. I have no fucking memory of that. That's not what self-forgiveness is. Self-forgiveness is about looking at what you did, confronting what you did, acknowledging it on a deep level and saying, that was me. I did that. And now I've got to get right with the fact that I did that. I've got to accept it and I've got to let it go so that I've got more energy and more power that can be directed towards what I'm going to do from now on, who I'm going to be from now on, what my ethics and morals and principles are, what my guidelines are, and how I intend to stick to them. You can only have the power and the potency to really do that if you've stopped tripping over stuff that happened before, that happened in the past, stuff that you can't change. Own it and use it. Own it and build on it. Build your strong foundation. If you're watching this because you know that you need to forgive yourself for something and you haven't been through that process of self-forgiveness, then I urge you to sit with yourself now and really just think about the thing that you are struggling to forgive yourself for. Get it in mind, bring the vibration of it into your body, and really say to yourself, that was me. I did that. That's who I was in that moment. That's the decision I made in that moment. Those are the things that I said in that moment. And now I want you to ask yourself, if you're still holding on to this crap that happened in the past, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, in a decade's time, how's that going to affect your life? Is it going to be good for you? Is it going to be good for the people around you? Is it going to nurture and help the people that come into your life? Is it going to nurture you? Is it going to nurture your self-esteem? Do you think you're going to be able to have the power and the potency to ride this wave called life and do what you want to do if you've constantly got that crap on your mind, if you're constantly tying yourself to it, if you're telling yourself that you don't deserve to outrun it, you don't deserve to ever stop thinking about it? Everyone who's ever done something that they're not proud of should learn from it. They should take it and they should use it to form a stronger connection to themselves, to their ethics, their principles, their beliefs, to the kind of person that they want to be. Everything I've done in my life that I'm not proud of, I've tried to look at, I've tried to stare it in the face, I've tried to confront it and say, why am I not proud of that? What was so wrong with it? What's the thing that really gets under my skin about it? Why do I struggle to identify that as a part of me? Why am I struggling to move beyond it? Why am I struggling to leave it behind? As I ask myself those questions, I can find answers about the kind of person I want to be, the kind of ways that I want to treat people, my beliefs, the things that I really don't believe about how it's okay to treat people, and the ways that I really do want to treat me and others. If you're struggling to forgive yourself, tell yourself now that the self-forgiveness process is going to be part of a bigger thing. It's going to be part of a bigger, overarching narrative, which is going to be how you plan to live from now on. And then I want you to start journaling, start brainstorming, start writing down notes about what your ethics and beliefs really are. How do you want to treat people? What kinds of decisions do you want to make? If you look back and you're not proud of the fact that you went into terrible rages when you were angry and you did or said unspeakable things, then sit down and think to yourself, how do I want to behave when I'm angry? What's the right thing to do? Another thing that you might want to try doing if you're watching this video is to identify your regrets and write them down. Think about the things in your life that you've said, that you've done, the choices that you've made that you actually really regret, especially the things that you feel guilty about or sad about, the things that are disappointing to you. Write those things down and get clear about them, and get clear about why it's so important that you face them, that you acknowledge that they happened, and that you agree with yourself to let them go, to allow them to stop plaguing you so that you can get on with being a more expansive person, a more aware person, a person who does live in alignment with their principles. Take a look at the list of regrets that you've written down and think about how harmful it is for you to keep holding on to them, or how harmful it would be if you continue to latch onto them for years and years. Think about the amount of energy it drains from you to do that. Think about the amount of energy and power which could instead be redirected into doing nice things for people, doing nice things for yourself, making decisions that are nurturing for others, making decisions that are good for the planet. Mistakes are okay if we use them as fuel to engineer actions and decisions that are beautiful for us, that are beautiful for others, that help, that heal, that are compassionate, that are conscious. I think the main message that I'm trying to get across in this video is that a lot of people tell themselves that self-forgiveness is an inherently selfish act. It's something that you do when you want to forget all about the wrongs that you've done and the mistakes that you've made. It's something that you do so that you can brush your crappy behaviour under the rug. And honey, that is not it. That's not what self-forgiveness is. Self-forgiveness is the very first stepping stone. You need that stepping stone before you can get on the journey towards being the kind of person that you know you are in your soul and maintaining the kind of ethics and guidelines that you really believe in. Without that first stepping stone, you can't get on the rest of the path. You can't. There's a great big gap. And the stepping stone that provides the link in that gap is self-forgiveness. You've got to agree to leave the past where it is, to say, I acknowledge that I did that, but I have to let it go and I have to allow myself to use my power in a better way, in a way that is truly going to make amends for what I did then. Torturing yourself with past memories, mocking yourself, berating yourself, being mean to yourself about what you did in the past, that's not making amends. That's actually the inherently selfish thing. To become obsessed with it, to become absorbed with it, to think over and over again about how shit you are and how little you deserve, isn't that the inherently self-absorbed thing? I mean, how's that helping anybody? How's that helping you? How's that helping others? How is that truly making amends for what you did? Self-forgiveness is the key that unlocks that door. And from then on, you have more energy, you have more potential, you have more concentration, you have more focus that you can put into making better decisions, making it right, making sure you don't make the same mistakes and the same crappy decisions in the future. I hope that this video has helped you to understand a little bit more about how vital self-forgiveness is, and I hope it's allowed you to invite a reframing process into your heart and into your mind if necessary. If you've been telling yourself that you don't deserve to forgive yourself, I really want you to understand and know deeply that forgiving yourself is the first step in a much bigger story. And the bigger story is about how you choose to go on from here, how you choose to learn from the mistakes that you made and from the ways in which you may have hurt yourself or others. Don't forget, if you want to share your self-love story with us, then you can do so. Click the video below and it will explain all about it. I would love for you to come and hang out with me on social media. I'm posting a lot on Facebook at the moment. I'm posting a lot on Twitter. I'm keeping you guys up to date with everything that I'm doing. Don't forget, I'm also doing Self-Love Sunday on SoundCloud. Until the next Self-Love September video, much love and self-love. Blessed be.